Benvenuto a Popcorn and Paint, where I talk about movies and shows while doing speed paint. And today we're going to be talking about the show called Severance. Severance is pretty awesome. I've got to say, I have not seen a concept like this in a very long time, if at all, to be honest. Almost like this was based off of a book, because usually you'd see books like this that have these kind of concepts, and it's pretty awesome. So, how we start off with Severance is, we have this main character who is Mark. He is depressed. He lost someone, he lost his wife, and he goes into work. And I like the concept for this because what it basically is that he works at this company named Lumen, and when people go in, they don't remember their outside life. So hear me out. You go inside a place, right? And you sign in, you go inside the elevator, you go down the elevator, and then you blink, and when you open up your eyes, from that blink, you're going back outside, going back outside, like going back up the elevator and going outside. So to you literally came to work, immediately went in the elevator, it started going down, and then it started going up, and then you're done your workday. Yeah, from like 9 o'clock. When you go in, you have lost all that time between 9 and 5. And so your work life doesn't exist to you at all. Meanwhile, the other version of you that they call innies is inside work all the time. When they are done work, they go inside the elevator and they come back out and they're right back at work again, ready to start the next day. The outside life doesn't exist to them. So the people that live on the outside are called the outies, and the people that live on the inside are called the innies. So you have Mark, you have Derek or Darren. I forgot what his name is. Oh my god, Daryl. I don't remember the other guys' names, but you get to know them. They're basically all in there together. They just work in this really huge room. It's actually very inefficient. They're working on these really old computers that look like freaking game consoles. They're really fat and awful looking. The screens are so small, but all they're responsible for doing is putting in these numbers. And as the show goes on, you start to realize that everything is not what it seems. These innies, of course, they can't kill them or something like that, because then the person on the outside would be missing. So Mark and his friends or his coworkers work in macro data. He gets a promotion because one of his friends just doesn't show up one day, and they're like, what happened to him? What happened to Petey? And apparently the stupid boss bitch lady that I cannot stand, she's like, oh, well, you're taking Petey's job now, so now you're the manager of your department, which only consists of 2 people. Nobody will answer him where Petey went. And then in comes Helly, which is the new character. And honestly, she is the only one out of all of them that starts to ask questions. Mark, basically, when she's on the table, she doesn't know who she is. She doesn't remember who she is, because when an innie's life starts, you don't know who you are on the outside. You don't know if you have a family. You don't know if you have a spouse or a husband or kids. I got thinking to myself, okay, if I severed myself, that's what the show's based on, why it's called Severance, because you basically sever a part of your brain that connects your personal life to your work. So you don't carry work home with you, because those 2 personalities that's still you exists in different places. So the innies they could be a completely different person inside there. You could be gay in there and be not gay on the outside. They're just 2 different personalities. Like, they have a basal foundation of who they are. But for example, Helly R, the new girl that they have to train, she is like, I don't want to be here. And clearly her other person, Outie, who we find out later is a total bitch, is like, no, you're staying there. You're not a real person. The show gets deeper and deeper. Helly tries to out herself, like take herself out the equation. She was like, all right, Mrs. Outie, since you're gonna treat me like that and you don't think I'm a person, then let's see how you feel when you wake up, when it's time to go home and you come to, you go in the elevator, next thing you know, you're hanging from a freaking noose. We have Irving here who likes a guy in one of the other departments, but they're trying to prevent them from being together. Poor Irving, he's also always tired, and if he starts nodding off, he gets in trouble. And they go to this place called the break room. Mr. Milchick is the guy in the middle who is like, yeah, everything's all hunky-dory, and it's okay. And the way he talks to them like they're 7-year-olds.
Can I record something back?
So what you'll find here is that communication between selves is pretty curtailed.
Like most of their lives down there. And the way Mr. Milchick smiles is just this fake. You don't know what he's thinking. Like, the character does such a great job playing him because he's frightening. He's like, oh, he looks so kind, but he's hiding stuff and he doesn't care about us. And when he gets mad, he's freaking creepy. He feels like a Terminator or something. So he does a really good job with the character. Understandably, as time goes on, the innies, or the people who work inside your version of you that's only conscious inside the workplace, they want to get out. They want to see what the outside world is like. Mrs. Colwell, who has a different name on the outside, actually remembers what it's like to be in work because she never severed. She's actually Mark's next door neighbor, so she can keep an eye on him. Petey ends up running into Mark, and the miraculous thing is that Petey, the guy who they said, oh, we don't know what happened to him, Petey just doesn't work here anymore, he's fired, or whatever the case is, he was Mark's best friend. And Mark doesn't know who he is on the inside, but Petey knows who he is because Petey managed to unsever. Mrs. Colwell, the Mark's boss at Lumen, actually goes inside of his house to snoop around while Mark is at work. And the straight up violation makes you really hate his boss. The whole company is like a cult. It is founded by this person named Keir Egan, and people kind of worship him. Mrs. Colwell, the boss, goes home and she has like a temple towards him, which is freaking creepy. And you notice how there are just certain things as the show progresses where you realize that they're really harming these people. Like, they're abusing them, not really physically because they can't get away with that, but there's some serious mental abuse going on that the people outside don't even feel. And I'm just wondering, if the stress levels are constantly high during those hours of work, won't your body feel it when you're out of work? Because it's the same person.
I'm afraid you don't mean it.
And only in me shall their stain live on.
So they have them in this place called the break room, where they torture them, sort of, over and over again, making them read this plea, like this prayer about how horrible they are over and over again, and they need you to mean it. They actually hook you up to a lie detector so that they can tell whether or not you mean it. And that is your life down there. You never see outside, like, you have the concept of what outside is, but as they said, they don't know if they have apartments or houses. They know nothing. Because Irvin and Bert keep meeting up with each other to hook up, the company straight up fires him, and when you get fired from Lumen, that is basically you dying. Like, any version of yourself dies because it ceases to exist. So that's one of the reasons, that's one of the things they can say, we'll hold that over you. But if that innie wants to come out, there's nothing the outie can do to stop that. Like, my thing is, I would just keep cutting myself inside there. I would just be like, snip, snip, snip. I wonder how it would feel if you do this. And they did explore that because Helly R, the worker, she was like to her outie, yeah, I could just chop off a finger or something and something horrible could happen. To which her outie was like, if something happens to my body, I'm gonna make sure you live long enough to regret that. So, of course, Helly doesn't want to live through that. Meanwhile, Mark is now looking for answers as to what Lumen really is. What is it that he is doing? Who is he working for? In his outside life, he tries to date this girl, and she's really sweet, but his wife is still in his mind. Like, it's said that she got killed in a tragic car accident, but he's still so broken up and depressed and can't seem to move on from that. The departments try to be friends, even though the company kind of pits them against each other and puts out this propaganda that says that the other department is evil from the other. When they do try to go out and find answers, they find an area where there are baby goats. There's a board of directors that nobody ever meets with. Even Miss Colwell takes orders from them, but they are always present through a speaker. And I mean, it just gets crazy. This is the kind of show that has you on the edge of your seat. So honestly, before even going any further than this, you guys are definitely going to want to watch it if you have not. So to summarize everything, Mark and his friends, Dylan, Helly, Irving, they come to the point where they're like, you know what? Screw it. I want to go out. I want to go and see what's out there. And what prompts Dylan to even want this is that when he's at home, there is a procedure that Mr. Milchick or the company can do to wake you up. Wake up your innie self while you're on the outside to ask you about something from work. It's rarely done, but it happened to Dylan. And Dylan was able to see his kid. He woke up in a closet and his kid came running in and said, hey, I counted to whatever. So apparently the worker went there to his house and was like, okay, I need to activate your innie for some job thing. So let's make the kid count to 10 or count to whatever number so I can speak to you real quick. And the kid counted either too quickly or didn't listen. And the kid came in and hugged Dylan. And from that moment on, like holding his son and seeing his son, he was like, oh no, I want to feel the steps to get out here. I have a son. And Milchick was like, you weren't supposed to see that. So then Dylan's like, all right, I got a plan. And the other guys in his workplace were like, yeah, we want to go out there. Here's how we do it. This is how he was able to wake you up on the outside. They found out how to do it from some security room that nobody really watches at this company. And Dylan often to stay back so he could break into the security area and sacrifice him staying there so that they can go outside. So they set up something for Dylan where he can stay back overtime and enjoy some theater and food. Oh dear God, these waffles. Oh my God. So while he's enjoying all of that, Miss Coble's at her home crying because she got fired because everything that was happening with the workers was starting to get out of hand because they were asking too many questions and she wasn't supervising them enough. And she like worships Kier, who was the founder of the Lumen Company. So her whole life and purpose poured into that company. Mark goes to his sister's house and his sister and her husband are like the only people he really trusts. The plan is that they're supposed to tell someone who's really close to them what's happening, that the innies need help, that they're not happy down there. And that's exactly what they end up doing. Mrs. Colwell catches on to this because remember, she's not severed, so she felt Mark tense up when his innie self got online and it was like, oh, I'm here now, but I'm just gonna pretend. And when he calls her Miss Colwell, which is probably why she has two different names, so that she can know whether or not Mark or anybody else who is on the outside knows who she is. She has a name inside work and outside work. He used her inside name at the company, so she was like, oh shit, this is not the outie, this is the innie. And she wants her job back, I guess, so she tells them, and Mr. Milchick tries to go to the control room where Dylan is. Meanwhile, Helly, Mark, and Irving only have a little bit of time to tell people on the outside what is going on with them. Mark ends up telling his sister, who gave her newborn baby to Mrs. Coble, because Mrs. Coble was pretending to be a babysitter because she's freaking creepy. And one of the other bombshells, because I knew this was going to happen. There is this woman in the company that is basically like a therapist, and Mark really appreciates her. She really appreciates Mark, but she's like one of the most boring people we'll ever meet. Her name is Miss Casey, and I always thought there was something weird about her, and it's funny because you realize how much the company has manipulated the mindset, the minds of these poor people. When Mark's innie version is on the outside, or his innie consciousness is now on the outside. When he looks at a picture of his wife that we've seen before, the picture turns out to be Miss Casey. Mark's wife never died, and Lumen has her there for some strange reason. And the thing is, when we've seen pictures of her before, which we barely do, it doesn't look like her. So they changed his perception, or the Audie's perception of what she looks like. But for some reason, when Mark is on the outside now as his innie self, I know this sounds freaking confusing, he can see past that perception and see that, wow, they know that this is his wife and they made them forget each other or something. And the last bit of time that Mark has before Dylan is caught and he has to let go of the buttons that are engaging the procedure, Heliar also is at this talk where her Audie is a complete asshole and is making money off of the suffering that she's enduring and pretending it's something else. She tells everyone there that, yeah, I'm an innie and we're not treated well down there. It's actually like slavery. They're abusing us. They're doing this in front of all these people. Mark tells his family that, yeah, she's alive right before he is turned off.
Damn it! We're prisoners! She's alive!
And that's how the show kind of ends. I mean, there's way more to it, but oh my god, this show, dude, this concept is one that I have not seen before. Like, we know about consciousness and stuff, but I've never imagined that they would make up a concept where you can separate your work life from your personal life, and the inside version of you is a completely different person. Probably has different relationships down there and everything. Because Mark was starting to get a relationship with Helly. And you have no idea. Like, and is it cheating? Like, seriously, is it cheating if I don't know my consciousness inside the workplace is sleeping with someone else? Like, as far as they're concerned, nothing else outside there exists. They literally don't know anything about that. It was just such a kick-ass show. It was such a kick-ass show. I'm so glad that I found it. And you guys should definitely watch it if you haven't watched it. Very surreal, very psychological, and I'm so dying for a second season. It's one of those shows that are really simple, has a very simple format. There's not too much, there's little trinkets and nuggets there, and there's not this influx of information that you feel as though your head's gonna explode. It feels like you're tasting condensed milk and you're like, I want more, but they know if they give you the whole can, you're gonna go into like diabetic shock or something. So they just give you like a little drop and you're like, more, 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 and they set the pace so well. well. Ben Stiller did a really good job with this. I know people were saying that when I was talking about this, they were saying he doesn't deserve the credit. It's actually the writer, even though he's the director. I mean, I don't know that. I don't know who's responsible for the brains for this. But if he's gonna get directing credit, he did direct it very, very well, so you can't take that away from him. This doodle is of a creature that I call the Retinosaurus. It's an omnivorous creature that blends in with its tropical environments. It usually scavenges for most of its food, also feeds on berries and grass and shrubs. But what it enjoys the most is hunting for its prey in a 1, 2, 3 red light style.